It does not leave bodies, just blood smeared across the roads, hundreds dead, thousands left wondering what happened to their missing family members as Foundation agents sneak into their homes and restructure their memories. One containment breach, one unfortunate photo of an impossible monster's face. All that's left is to clean up, bag the creature's head, and take it back to containment, hoping it would never be seen again. Far below in a kingdom of fire, something even more diabolical takes an interest. Such power, such ferocity, such indiscriminate destruction. He hasn't seen anything like it in a long, long time, and he wants to get acquainted. Imagine being a creature so violent that you catch the devil's attention. Ugh, are those cobwebs? Gross, this place is filthy. I guess no one's been down here in a while? Hey, what's under this tarp? The Anomatron 6000. Looks like this thing hasn't seen a whole lot of use lately. What's the worst that could happen if I dusted it off? Chaos exploded beyond the doors of the ATV as they burst open, steel-capped boots thumping against the asphalt and crunching shards of broken glass underfoot. The blindingly bright neon of the strip was dwarfing the flicker of flames, barely making much more light than the usual twinkling machines that offered hollow promises of winning big. Agent North felt his fingers flex around the grip of his rifle as he caught sight of the carnage unfolding through the shattered glass front of the Vegas hotel. Jazz, better activate your disruptor. One of his squad mates nudged him back to awareness. Whatever's going on in there, it's turning these folks into animals. The squad flipped on the anti-memetic devices that the tech boys had attached to their tactical helmets, keeping themselves safe from whatever had infected the civilians inside. Or so they believed. They formed up, approaching the building in a defensive pattern, and cautiously made their way inside. The report had called it a riot, but that seemed like an understatement. The place had been ransacked so badly it was barely recognizable as either the hotel or casino it advertised itself as. Slot machines had been smashed to pieces, the metal and plastic torn apart seemingly by hand, given the red streaks and fingernails embedded in some. Discarded chips lay strewn across the floor, those that weren't being carried by the armfuls scooped up in the shirts of the people that were left standing. Each of them was frenzied, feral, eyes wide and bloodshot, baring all their teeth as they scrapped together. Agent North spotted two men trading punches, clawing at each other on the blood-stained marble floor, with the body of another lying still beneath them. The members of Mobile Task Force Mu-0 kept their weapons raised, but the civilians' wrath seemed to be solely focused on each other. All except one. Sat calmly at a blackjack table was a man in a suit, calmly sipping wine from a tall glass and humming to himself. There is a house in New Orleans. He casually turned around in his seat to face the Foundation operatives as they approached, laser dots hovering over the open shirt beneath his suit jacket. Evening, boys. I'm surprised it took you so long to find me. After all, where else on this mortal coil would I be if not Sin City? I mean, I'm practically right next door. The man was flicking a playing card around his fingers, the 6 of hearts. Anyone want to play? How about a round of Devil's Grip? Oh, and you can take those fancy new gizmos on your helmets off. You look ridiculous. But before we continue with any more of the Devil's Banter, a question for you. Is something interfering with your happiness or preventing you from achieving your goals? Regardless if you have a clinical mental health issue like depression or anxiety, or if you're just a human who lives in this world who is going through a hard time, therapy can give you tools to approach your life in a very different way. And that's why I'm excited to tell you about today's sponsor, BetterHelp. BetterHelp's mission is to make therapy more affordable and more accessible, and this is an important mission because finding a therapist can be really hard, especially when you're limited to the options in your area. BetterHelp is a platform that makes finding a therapist easier because it's online, it's remote, and by filling out a few questions, BetterHelp can match you to a professional therapist in as little as a few days. It's easy to sign up and get matched with a therapist. There's a link in my description. It's betterhelp.com/SCP Explained. Clicking that link helps support this channel, but it also gets you 10% off your first month of BetterHelp, so you can connect with a therapist and see if it helps you. And because finding a therapist is a little like dating, if you don't really fit with that therapist, which is a common thing with therapy, you can easily switch to a new therapist at no additional cost without stressing about insurance, who's in your network, or anything like that. So if you're struggling, consider online therapy with BetterHelp. Click the link in the description or visit betterhelp.com/SCP Explained. Thank you again, BetterHelp, for supporting this channel. And now back to our mobile task force and their dealings with the devil. The team exchanged glances, but not one of them touched their disruptors. Agent North spoke up, demanding this mysterious figure release the civilians from his influence, as a precondition for any kind of negotiation here. Influence? I did not do that. The man shrugged, the card between his fingers switching to the King of Diamonds with a sleight of hand trick. You ask me, that's just a design flaw. But then again, you weren't all made in my image, were you? The agent's voice got louder, barking for the mystery man to submit to their demands immediately. The squad members all raised their assault rifles. If the stranger didn't release the civilians, they might be forced to use lethal force. Oh, you mean release them from their basic human instincts? Well, that seems a little bit cruel and unusual, even for your Foundation. The man chuckled, finishing his wine. But if you insist. With a click of his fingers, the room went silent. Calm instantaneously spread among the people who had been literally tearing each other apart only seconds earlier. But taking more than a cursory glance at the civilian told the MTF operatives that there was still something wrong. Each of the people in the casino wore a vacant expression, eyes empty as if they were completely void of life. Agent North barked out a question. What had he done to these people? Now, Mr. North, the man said, standing up. A deal is a deal. Convey me to the Foundation. I've been waiting for the sightseeing part of my vacation. Hearing his name from this unknown, clearly anomalous reality warper made Agent North instinctively raise his gun. The man staring down the barrel didn't flinch. Instead, a wry smile crawled across his face. Oh, come now, Mr. North. Perhaps I shouldn't have expected rationality. Oh, that's a little beyond you, isn't it? The figure chuckled, everything about him filling the MTF operatives with an overpowering sense of dread as they kept their weapons trained on him. So many nights wondering about your wife, whether or not she forgave you for that accident. The man took a step forward until the rifle's muzzle was pushing directly against him. Would you like to know the truth, Mr. North? His voice lowered to an ominous whisper. She never did. Bang! The shot echoed through the casino floor, a faint trail of smoke winding up into the air. Agent North blinked in disbelief. In the flash that followed him pulling the trigger, the figure standing before him and his squad mates had vanished. They scanned the area to try and spot their target, only to be met with pitch-dark shadows surrounding them. Came the man's voice through the emptiness. You can't kill the devil, Jeremy. Back at command, the Foundation analysts were panicking. MTF Mu-0 had vanished. They scrabbled around trying to figure out what to do. Someone threw out the suggestion that the full force of Alpha-1, the Red Right Hand, be dispatched to Las Vegas to launch a full-scale assault on SCP-4661, the area of the city that anomalously overlapped with another plane of reality, causing sinful behavior to intensify within Vegas. Another threw out the idea, suggesting that SCP-507 should be sent to retrieve the dimensionally displaced task force. As they squabbled, researchers and security found themselves being drawn into an argument, all of them feeling an overwhelming notion that they were right and everyone disagreeing with them was wrong. What had begun as a tactical discussion devolved into a free-for-all. Shoves turned into swings of fists, the hurling of office chairs as a brawl ensued. Little did any personnel notice an unauthorized new arrival, who seemed to be walking around the facility's halls. It was the same man from the casino, strolling calmly and casually past the windowed containment cells that housed anomalies, like an eccentric collector perusing an art gallery. Boring, the man scoffed, seeing an orange blob shrink away from him behind the glass. "Oh, so boring." He passed a beak-faced doctor in dark clothes. "Derivative," the man sighed, seeing a statue that refused to move even when he blinked. "Absurdly overpowered." Within its acid-filled vat, the reptile seethed with anger. "Oh, look, one of my antiques," the man mused, passing a vacant mahogany desk with 2 vacant chairs, a simpler straight-back seat, and a large, ornate throne-like office chair, embellished with brass and royal purple velvet padding. Then the man came to a windowless room, the one thing that seemed to garner his curiosity in the entire facility. In actuality, it wasn't the unassuming containment cell that caught his attention. It was the sounds of distraught crying emanating from within. The despaired sobs didn't deter the man from effortlessly waving his hands and causing the heavy, hermetically sealed door to start buckling, glowing as the dense steel began to melt. The molten metal door split apart, then cooled in an instant, leaving a gap in the entrance to the dark containment chamber. Sat in the far corner, rocking itself slightly, was a shape with legs and arms far too long to be hunched over comfortably in the cramped room. A paper bag had been left over its face, as the tall, wiry, thin creature gently rocked itself between sobs. SCP-096 had felt the same unease that now ran through the entire facility, and even with its face covered, it could sense its source getting closer with each step. "Oh, enough," the figure said, walking into the cell, startling the shy guy. "If I wanted to hear the desperate cries of the damned, I would have stayed home." The man clicked his fingers, causing flames to erupt out of nowhere, singeing the paper bag into nothing but ash in seconds. SCP-096 recoiled, pushing itself further into the corner, ineffectually covering its face with its elongated limbs. Now, don't cower." The man unnervingly, calmly offered out a hand to the creature. "I did come all this way to see if the rumors were true. And just look at you, you're real. Even if I'm impressed, the rage of a creature that would kill a human just for the insolence of looking at it. Remarkable. Here, while everyone's hashing things out in the command center, what say you and I have a little chat about your future, 096? That's what they call you, isn't it?" Slowly recognizing its designation, the shy guy turned, trembling to face the suited figure in its cell. The moment the man's eyes looked at its face, the anomalous creature could feel the familiar, intensifying rage that it was so accustomed to, urging it to lash out at the man and kill him on the spot. But somehow, it was being suppressed, like the figure's influence was enough to keep the rage state at bay, for now. Either that, or for maybe the first time ever, SCP-096 was too scared to attack. "Oh, there's that handsome face," the man beamed. "See, you wouldn't have to hide for hell's sake. You could be a real force for wanton chaos, my friend. Now, while I'm confined to only whisper in the ears of mortals, you should be getting out there and sowing some abject misery. Look, there's a perfectly good desk of mine a few rooms away. What say we take a seat and strike up a deal? After all, better the devil you know. I can give you anything you truly desire, whether it's freedom from this place, revenge on the Foundation. If you're really all that insecure about it, I could even give you a facelift. In return, you have to do one thing for me. Let as many people see you as possible. Maybe even the whole world, even. Oh, you'd have so much killing to do." The very suggestion of being perceived by so many people was enough to enrage SCP-096. It broke free of whatever unfamiliar hold the figure had over it, hurling one of its arms out in a vicious swipe. Just as its fingers were about to reach the man, they passed through the now vacant spot where he had been standing. He had vanished within a split second that the shy guy had lunged at him. The anonymous creature wailed and screamed as the figure's voice echoed around the room, giving another sinister chuckle. "Oh my, how disappointing," he sneered. "To think you could have had anything you wanted. No matter. Screaming and trying to attack me won't do you any good either. I won't go down like some of the others that have snuck a forbidding glance at that mug of yours. My physical form isn't even really here. It's still trapped on the lowest layer. You're not the only one kept contained, my friend. I just use this human shape for personal travel above ground. But it seems my little vacation is coming to a halt. Here, won't you join me for the return trip? The ground beneath SCP-096's feet began to shudder violently, the floor cracking and crumbling away. But instead of bringing it crashing down to the floor of the facility below its cell, an amber volcanic glow rose between the cracks underfoot. Piece by piece, the floor broke away, some invisible force pulling SCP-096 downwards as it flailed its arms, clawing at the ground as it crumbled away until the Shy Guy lost its grip and began to plummet. Searing heat raged all around it, tongues of flame practically reaching out to singe the creature's body as it fell further and further. Its own wails and screams joined a deafening cacophony of others, of never-ending voices crying out in torment and suffering. After what felt like an eternity of falling and burning, SCP-096 hit the stony ground, the air pungent with the stench of brimstone. Sat before him on a chair adorned in brass and royal purple was the same man from earlier. As the Shy Guy staggered to its feet, the man's visage started to catch fire, slowly burning away to reveal the blood-colored skin and huge protruding horns of a fallen angel beneath the disguise. Perhaps after a several thousand-year stint in the Eighth Circle, you'll reconsider my generous offer. Satan chuckled before snapping his clawed fingers, causing SCP-096 to vanish in a burst of flame. Excruciating torture awaited the defenseless creature. The Prince of Darkness's underlings would see to that. But as he reclined on his throne, he didn't realize a tall, thin humanoid form reappeared behind him, eyes filled with a rage that didn't care if he was the devil. He should not have looked at its face. The devil struggles in the grasp of the nightmare he unknowingly brought down into his boiling kingdom. Perhaps there's a spell or some terrible curse that can free him from the monster's grasp, but somehow he knows that nothing will save him. He could flee to any of the Ninth Circles, and the monster would brave fire and brimstone to find him. He could throw the creature into a reoccurring pit of infinite darkness, and it would find its way back into the light. Somehow, in the same hubris that had gotten him cast out of heaven so many eons ago, the Lord of Darkness may have brought about his own destruction, and he may have thought he knew darkness, until the black maw of SCP-096 gaped open, and Satan himself beheld a darkness deeper and more permanent than any he had ever known. Now go check out What If SCP-096 Was Put Inside SCP-914? And can SCP-096 chase its victims across the multiverse for even more?